There's a moment that comes for everyone. The phone call you didn't expect. The door that closes. The plan you built your life around collapsing in front of you while you stand there, unable to move. And in that moment, you learn something about yourself. Not what you believe, not what you say when life is easy, but what you actually are when everything you were holding on to is taken away. The Stoics spent their entire lives preparing for that moment, not avoiding it, preparing for it. They believed that calm is not something you're born with. It's something you build, quietly, long before the storm arrives. In the next half hour, I'm going to show you how they did it. 7 principles, drawn from 3 men who faced exile, illness, betrayal, and death, and stayed unshaken through all of it. By the end of this video, you'll understand something most people never learn, that the chaos around you was never the problem. And you'll never look at losing control the same way again. So breathe, slow down, and let's begin. Almost 2,000 years ago, 3 very different men arrived at the same conclusion. One was a slave named Epictetus, who was born into bondage and whose leg was broken by a cruel master, and who became one of the most respected teachers in Rome. One was Seneca, a wealthy statesman who was exiled to a barren island recalled, and eventually ordered to take his own life by an emperor he had once tutored. And one was Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man alive, ruler of the Roman Empire, who buried most of his own children and led his armies through plague and war. These were not men who lived sheltered, comfortable lives and theorized about hardship from a safe distance. They were tested, brutally, repeatedly. And out of that testing came a philosophy called Stoicism. Not the cold, emotionless caricature people imagine today, but a practical system for keeping your mind steady when the ground beneath you is shaking. Their central insight was simple, and it changes everything once you truly absorb it. You do not react to events. You react to your judgment about events. The storm outside cannot reach you unless you let it inside. That is where calm begins. Let's start with the first principle, the one everything else rests on. The first principle is the foundation. Master this one, and the others become possible. Epictetus taught that the single most important skill in life is learning to divide the world into 2 categories. There are things within your power and things outside it. Your actions, your effort, your judgments, your response. These are yours. The outcome, the opinions of others, the economy, the past, the behavior of the people around you, the result of the illness, these were never yours to command. Almost all human suffering, he said, comes from confusing the 2. We pour our energy into controlling what we cannot, and we neglect the one thing we actually can, ourselves. Think of a ship's captain in a storm. He cannot command the wind. He cannot order the waves to be still. If he spends the storm screaming at the sky, he loses the ship. But if he accepts that the sea is beyond him and turns his full attention to the one thing he controls, the rudder in his hands, he has a chance. The calm captain is not calm because the storm is small. He is calm because he has stopped fighting the parts of it he was never going to win. In your own life, this is the difference between the person who is destroyed by a layoff and the person who is merely set back by one. You cannot control whether the company keeps you. You can control how you carry yourself the next morning, how quickly you adapt, what you do with the hours now in your hands. The moment you stop demanding that the uncontrollable obey you, an enormous weight lifts. The cost of ignoring this is a life of exhaustion. People who never learn it spend their years trying to manage things that were never theirs, other people's choices, the weather of fortune, the verdict of strangers, and they wonder why they feel so powerless. They are powerless because they aim their power at the wrong target. So, before the storm comes, practice asking one question. Is this mine to control or not? It sounds almost too simple, but the next principle reveals why it's so hard to actually do. Seneca noticed something strange about human suffering. Most of it never actually happens. We are tormented, he wrote, more by our fears than by our facts. The mind runs ahead into a future that does not exist and lives there, suffering through 100 disasters almost none of which arrive. You lie awake at 3 in the morning, and the version of catastrophe playing in your head is far worse, far more vivid, and far more painful than anything the next day will bring. This is because the imagination has no limits, but reality does. Reality is specific. It has edges. When a hard thing finally happens, you deal with it, one concrete step at a time. But the imagined version has no edges at all. It expands to fill every dark corner of the night. There is a story of a soldier waiting for a battle. The waiting destroys more men than the fighting. In the field, the body knows what to do. In the tent, the night before, the mind invents 1,000 deaths. The Stoics understood that the same is true for all of us. The dread of the thing is almost always heavier than the thing itself. You feel this every time you delay a difficult conversation, or put off opening the email, or avoid the doctor. The anticipation grows monstrous in the dark, and then you finally face it, and somehow it's manageable. It was always going to be manageable. You just spent days suffering a version of it that was never real. The person who never learns this lives in a permanent low hum of anxiety. They are not responding to their life. They are responding to a frightening movie their own mind keeps playing, and they mistake that movie for reality. So when you feel the panic rising, stop and ask, is this happening now, or am I rehearsing a future that hasn't come? Bring yourself back to what is actually in front of you, because the next principle shows you what to do with the hardship once it does arrive. Marcus Aurelius wrote a line to himself in his private journal that has outlived his entire empire. The essence of it was this: what stands in the way becomes the way. He meant that the obstacle in front of you is not an interruption of your life. It is your life. It is the material you've been given to work with. A fire does not complain about the fuel thrown onto it. It consumes whatever it's given and burns brighter. The strong mind does the same with adversity. It uses the very thing that was meant to stop it. This is not positive thinking. It is not pretending the bad thing is secretly good. The loss is still a loss. The pain is still real. But inside every hard situation, there is something that can be turned to use, a lesson, a strength you're forced to develop, a direction you would never have taken otherwise. Consider how many people, looking back, point to the worst moment of their life as the thing that made them, the illness that forced them to finally slow down, the betrayal that taught them whom to trust, the failure that closed one door and pushed them, unwillingly, through another. None of them would have chosen it. All of them were shaped by it. The Stoics trained themselves to ask, in the middle of difficulty, a single question: what does this make possible? Not, why is this happening to me, which leads nowhere, but what can I do with this, which leads forward? That small shift moves you from victim to craftsman, from someone things happen to, into someone who works with whatever comes. The person who never makes this shift stays frozen at the obstacle. They stand in front of it, demanding that it move, certain that life cannot continue until it does. And so their life stops there at the foot of the wall, waiting for permission that never comes. But to use the obstacle, you first have to be prepared for it. And that is the next principle, the one that looks dark at first, until you understand what it really gives you. The Stoics had a practice that sounds at first almost cruel. They called it the premeditation of adversity. Each day, calmly, they would imagine losing the things they loved. Seneca advised picturing it clearly. The journey that might be canceled, the friend who might be lost, the fortune that might vanish. Not to torture yourself, but to take away fear's greatest weapon, which is surprise. Misfortune, he said, weighs most heavily on those who expected only good. We do the opposite. We build our lives on the silent assumption that everything we have will stay. We assume the people we love are permanent, that our health is guaranteed, that tomorrow will look like today. And so when something is taken, we are not just hurt. We are ambushed. The pain is doubled by our shock, but the person who has quietly rehearsed loss is never ambushed. When the hard thing comes, a part of them has already met it. They grieve, yes, but they do not shatter, because they never believed they were owed permanence in the first place. there is a deeper gift hidden in this practice. When you truly accept that everything you have could be gone tomorrow, you stop taking it for granted today. You hold your people a little closer. You notice the ordinary morning. The man who remembers he could lose everything is the man who finally appreciates that he has anything at all. Those who refuse this practice live in a fragile dream. They build their peace on the belief that nothing will change, and life changes anyway. It always does. And when it does, they are left standing in the rubble of an assumption that was never true. So once in a while, gently look at what you have and remember that it is borrowed. Not to live in fear, but to live awake and to be unbreakable when the loss finally comes. And once you've accepted impermanence, the next principle teaches you how to hold this exact moment. Marcus Aurelius returned again and again in his writing to one humbling fact. Everything is temporary. The empires, the emperors, the triumphs, the disasters. All of it passes. All of it is washed away by time, as it always has been. To a mind in pain, this is one of the most freeing thoughts there is. Because the storm you are in right now, the grief, the panic, the unbearable pressure, feels in the moment like it will last forever. That is the lie that suffering tells. It convinces you that this is permanent, that you will feel this way for the rest of your life. You will not. You have survived every single worst day you have ever had. The feeling that swore it would never lift, lifted. The wound that you were certain would never close, closed even if it left a scar. You are right now living on the far side of pain that once felt final. The Stoics used this in both directions. In hardship, they reminded themselves, this too will pass, so endure it. In good fortune, they reminded themselves, this too will pass, so savor it. The same truth that softens grief also deepens gratitude. Nothing stays, so neither the pain nor the joy is worth losing your head over. Picture a wave. It rises, it towers, it looks for a moment like it will swallow everything, and then it breaks and flattens and returns to the sea it came from. Your worst moment is a wave. It is rising now. It feels enormous, but it is already, even as you stand in it, beginning to fall. The person who forgets this drowns in the present moment. They treat a passing wave as the permanent shape of the ocean. They make decisions in the middle of the storm that they will regret for years, because they believed the storm was the rest of their life. So when it feels like too much, place your hand on this single thought and hold it. This is a wave, and it is already passing. Then breathe. Because the next principle gives you something to do in the space the wave leaves behind. Epictetus gave us the idea that quietly contains all the others. It is not events that disturb us, he taught, but our judgments about them. Between the thing that happens and your reaction to it, there is a space. It is small. In a moment of anger or fear, it can feel like there is no space at all. The insult lands and the rage is already there. The bad news arrives and the panic is instant, but the space is always there. And your entire power as a human being lives inside it. In that gap is where you choose. Not whether the hard thing happened, that's done, but what it means and what you do next. Two people lose the same job. One calls it a catastrophe and falls apart. The other calls it a turning point and begins again. The event was identical. The judgment was everything. The Stoics trained relentlessly to widen that space, to feel the first surge of emotion and not be swept away by it, to pause, even for a single breath, before deciding what a thing means. Because the pause is the whole game. The pause is the difference between the word you can't take back and the silence that saves you, between the reaction that makes the crisis worse and the response that begins to solve it. You can practice this in the smallest moments. The driver who cuts you off, the message that stings, the plan that falls through. Each one is a chance to feel the reaction rising and, instead of obeying it, to step into the gap and choose. Every time you do, the space grows wider, and you grow harder to shake. The person who never finds this space is at the mercy of everything. They are a switch that anyone can flip. A passing comment ruins their day. A small setback ruins their week. They call it being sensitive or being honest. It is simply being unguarded. They have handed the controls of their inner life to whoever happens to be standing nearby. So, the next time something lands hard, do just one thing. Pause before you decide what it means. That pause is your freedom, and in the final principle, we'll see what you're protecting inside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote of a place he could always retreat to, quieter and more secure than any country house, any fortress, any escape. He found it within himself. He called it in spirit the inner citadel. The idea is this: you will spend your life seeking peace in things outside you, in the right circumstances, the right people, the right amount of money, the right run of luck, and every one of those things can be taken. The peace built on them is on loan, and it can be called back at any moment. But there is one place that no one can reach without your permission: your own mind. Build your calm there, and it cannot be stolen. This is the citadel. It is constructed slowly, in calm times, through exactly the practices we've covered. Knowing what you control, refusing to suffer the imagined, using the obstacle, accepting impermanence, widening the space before you react. Each one lays a stone, and when the siege comes, when life throws everything it has at the walls, you have somewhere to stand that the chaos cannot enter. A man can lose his fortune and keep his citadel. He can lose his health, his status, even his freedom. Epictetus was a slave, and his mind was freer than the emperors who outranked him, and still, within those walls, remain entirely his own. That is the final promise of this philosophy. The world can take almost everything from you. It cannot take how you meet what it takes. The person who never builds this has no refuge when the outer things are stripped away, and, sooner or later, for everyone, they are. There is nothing underneath. No fortress, no fallback, no still center. Just exposure. And so the smallest loss feels like the end of the world, because they have no world that isn't on loan. So build your citadel now in the quiet, before you need it. Lay the stones on the ordinary days, because the calm you construct today is the only shelter you'll have on the day everything falls apart. Let's bring it together. Calm was never the absence of the storm. The Stoics never promised you a life without loss, without pain, without the floor falling out from under you. They promised something better and far more durable, that none of it has to reach the center of you. You separate what you control from what you don't, and you stop exhausting yourself on the win. You refuse to suffer disasters that haven't happened. You take the obstacle and make it the path. You rehearse the loss so it can never ambush you, and you remember that all of it, the worst and the best, is passing. You find the space between what happens and how you respond, and you guard it. And stone by stone, you build a place inside yourself that nothing outside can conquer. Epictetus was a slave with a broken body. Seneca was exiled and then sentenced to die. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire through plague and grief and war. Not one of them was spared, and not one of them was broken. That was the whole point. They were not teaching you how to avoid the storm. They were teaching you how to stop being its victim. So the next time everything falls apart, and at some point for all of us it will, you won't need the chaos to stop. You'll have somewhere to stand inside it, quiet, steady, unshaken. That is the Stoic art of staying calm, and it has been available this whole time to anyone willing to build it. If this gave you something worth keeping, subscribe, and come back next time when we look at how the Stoics learned to let go of the things they could not control. Until then, stay calm and stay sovereign.